This is Edgecombe County, North Carolina, rural North Carolina, a place of farmland, small communities, family histories, churches, rivers, and people whose connection to this land reaches back generations. Edgecombe County was established during the colonial period in agriculture, which shaped much of its economy for centuries. Cotton, tobacco, and other crops brought wealth to some, but much of that wealth was built through the labor of enslaved African Americans, and later through generations of black farmers, sharecroppers, tenant farmers, and laborers. Today, much of Edgecombe County remains rural, and like many rural communities across America, it can sometimes feel overlooked until somebody from the outside decides the land is valuable. Then suddenly, everybody knows where you are and who you are. Across the Tar River from Tarboro sits Princeville. Its story begins after the Civil War, when formerly enslaved people gathered near a Union encampment and established a community initially known as Freedom Hill. These were people who were coming out of enslavement, attempting something that only years earlier would have been almost unimaginable: building a community where black people could own property, establish institutions, elect leadership, and determine their own future. In 1885, Freedom Hill was incorporated and renamed Princeville in honor of Turner Prince, a formerly enslaved carpenter and early resident of the community. Princeville became one of the earliest incorporated African American towns in the United States. But freedom did not mean life would become easy. Princeville survived segregation, Jim Crow, economic inequality, political challenges, and generations of being underestimated. And then there was the water. The Tar River has always been part of Princeville's story, but it also has been one of the town's greatest threats. Princeville sits in a floodplain, and residents have endured repeated flooding throughout the town's history. Then came Hurricane Floyd in September of 1999. After extraordinary rainfall across eastern North Carolina, the Tar River rose and Princeville was overwhelmed. Floodwater submerged much of the town. In some places, the water reportedly reached more than 20 feet above the streets. Homes were destroyed, families were displaced. A historic black town that had survived more than a century suddenly faced questions about whether it could survive at all. But Princeville rebuilt. Then Hurricane Matthew came in 2016, bringing devastation and floods again. Once again, residents were asked to recover. Once again, families had to decide what it meant to remain on land where generations before them had fought simply for the right to exist as free people. A few miles away is another historically black Edgecombe County community, Kingsboro. And if the current fight over industrial development feels familiar to longtime residents, there's a reason. In 1995, Iowa beef processors proposed building a massive hog processing facility in Kingsboro. Supporters talked about jobs and economic development. Residents began asking different questions, like what would happen to their water, traffic, what would happen to the Tar River, and what would happen to the people who already lived there. Kingsboro residents organized. They attended meetings, they challenged elected officials, they formed Citizens for Responsible Zoning, and their message was simple: we can do better. In April of 1996, after months of community resistance, Edgecombe County commissioners rejected the proposal. Nearly 30 years later, that fight has become an important chapter in North Carolina environmental history. But for the people of Edgecombe County, it was never just history, it was a lesson. Some of the same people and history keepers who stood with the Citizens for Responsible Zoning nearly 3 decades ago are finding themselves in another fight. This time, they are organizing as the Edgecombe Neighbors for Data Center Accountability, pushing back against a proposed $19.2 billion data center development in the community. I spent the day with residents discussing the challenges ahead, the lessons they learned from the past in organizing, and why they believe protecting their community requires showing up again. The next step is making sure their voices are represented at local government meetings, where decisions about land, development, and the future of Edgecombe County are being made. For some of these residents, this is not their first time defending this community from potential harm. Different industry, different generation. But the fight for accountability, transparency, and the right to have a say in what happens to their own community continues. Everybody, I am back here in Edgecombe County, North Carolina, and this feels like a second home. I've been back and forth up in Edgecombe County for the past 3 or 4 years, and it's been a great time every time I do come here. But right now we're at the coffee house with some esteemed individuals, some who you may have seen in my film that was completed here in Edgecombe County called We Can Do Better, in conjunction with the Phoenix Historical Society as well as East Carolina University. I'm going to turn the camera around because we are talking the data centers today, and I want everyone to please introduce themselves. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. We're just going to pass the mic.
Hello, I'm Katie Zimmerman. I work as the Pamlico Tar Riverkeeper for Sound Rivers.
Hello, and I'm Janice Bullock, a member of the Kingsboro. I'm a Kingsboro resident, and I'm co-founder of the Edgecombe Neighbors for Data Center Accountability. I'm also an Air Force veteran and a member of the American Legion.
David, you already got yours on your...
Okay.
Yeah, so you good, brother?
David Batts, I'm from Kingsboro, ran for Edgecombe County Commission in District 6 this year, won the primary.
Absolutely. November 3rd, right? That's the date, November 3rd?
Hello, my name is Mavis Stiff. I'm a Edgecombe County resident. I'm a member of the Edgecombe Neighbor for Data Center Accountability, and I'm happy to be here today.
My name is Jim Wren. I'm also a member of Edgecombe Neighbors with Data Center Accountability, but also, along with Mavis, we with the Phoenix Historical Society, African American History of Edgecombe County, and was very much involved in trying to recover the history of Kingsboro and the citizen responsible zoning. And here we see that that history has made a difference here now in inspiring people today in this particular fight against data centers.
And so history is kind of repeating itself right now. Like real time, history is repeating itself. And David, you were part of the very first film, We Can Do Better, in which we had mentioned earlier, and you're running for office. So do you mind expressing to us, what does it feel like being back in the same place, fighting again for a community in which you were reared in, as well as your ancestors, to make sure that pollution, to make sure that big business doesn't come in and uproot so many people that made this county what it is?
Well, we spoke on that at East Carolina to the students, that you had to be mindful because these things would return if you didn't watch it. And really, it came to pass. And the very interesting thing about that was when I was told about the data centers, I didn't pay much attention to it because, you know, I said, well, we done did a fight back in 95, 96, and the community didn't have that much fire in them. And Miss Mavis told me once, and I blew it off. She told me again, and I said, well, no, it must be something to it. Somebody comes back and tell you the same thing twice. And she spoke very pacific, very slowly, and told me, David, there's something bad getting ready to come to your neighborhood. You need to pay attention. So that really caught my eye. Then I talked to Janice and talked to Mr. Wren and talked to the community and asked the community about it. And they didn't know nothing about data centers, period. But after we gathered some information about it, we decided that we should challenge this. And so that's what we did.
In what year, Mavis, did you kind of know that some of this stuff was going down? Like when did you first catch wind
Of the data center,
Mm-hmm.
2025, when we had, Jim and I had made up in our mind that we're retired now. We have no reason not to be engaged in what is going on in the government sector. And we had made a decision in 2024 to start attending our Edgecombe County Commissioners meeting. And we just randomly was there that particular night to hear this information. And I think we had gotten I don't think it had come up before that particular meeting that we were attending in November of 2025. But we had made a conscious decision to start attending our meeting to know what is happening. And that is how we became aware that there was a movement happening within the government to bring a data center. And couldn't think of it before that. There was a discussion for Tarboro to bring in the data center. That was the initial information that we received, that Tarboro was considering, the town of Tarboro.
Before the conversations about the data centers expanded across Edgecombe County, some of the earliest discussions centered right here in Tarboro. But to understand Tarboro today, you do have to understand the history beneath it. Founded along the Tar River in 1760, the town grew into an important trading center for an agricultural region whose wealth was deeply connected to cotton, plantation agriculture, and enslaved labor. By the time of the Civil War, this community was firmly tied to the political and economic power structures of eastern North Carolina. One of Edgecombe County's most powerful figures during that era was Henry Toole Clark, a member of the quote-unquote planter elite. Clark became the governor of North Carolina in 1861 during the opening months of the Civil War and played a major role in preparing the state for war. His grave remains here in Tarboro. After emancipation, Black residents helped reshape the political, religious, economic, and labor landscape of Edgecombe County. Among them was John Campbell Dancy, born in Tarboro in 1857. Dancy became an educator, newspaper editor, powerful orator, AME Zion leader, and prominent Republican political figure. He would eventually serve as customs collector in Wilmington, one of the most important federal appointments held by an African American in North Carolina during that period. And Black political power here extended beyond individual leaders. Beginning in the 1880s, African American farm workers throughout Edgecombe County organized through the Knights of Labor. By 1886, Black agricultural workers were establishing local assemblies across the county, organizing around labor, politics, wages, and representation. In 1890, the North Carolina Knights of Labor held its statewide convention right here in Tarboro. These movements helped build the grassroots political foundation that would later contribute to North Carolina's fusion movement. So when residents of Edgecombe County organize today, they aren't creating a tradition from scratch. They're continuing one. Tarboro has seen war, it's seen slavery and emancipation, it has seen Black political organizing, labor movements, Reconstruction, and people demanding a greater voice in decisions affecting their lives. And now, generations later, another conversation about land, power, development, and who gets to determine the future of this community is happening once again.
And we made a decision to attend the town of Tarboro meeting to hear their discussion on whether or not to vote on having a data center. And we listened to the concerns of the citizens of Tarboro. And we realized Tarboro citizens was not in favor of a data center coming to Tarboro. And we listened to their concerns and began to acquire information and knowledge about electricity, cost of electricity on the consumer in the area, the impact to the water quality, and the cost, the overall cost of just having a data center in your area was not very good, not good information to hear. And that was how we became aware there was a concern.
The Tarboro town meeting discussing the data center, which is actually a public hearing for a special use permit. And people were very fired up. And the council, Tarboro Council, voted that down 8-1. It was after that meeting that we attended the October meeting of the County Commission of Edgecombe County, and there's a big discussion about the noise levels in the UDO. Following that meeting, the county called a meeting in Kingsboro in October, where they tried to explain to the community about what could be coming. Didn't do a good job explaining, but anyway, they had a meeting. So it was then in November that Mavis and I went to the county commissioners meeting. Janice Bullock was there, and the company that was trying to bring the data center and Energy Storage Solutions had all their experts in it around water, around electricity, they had all these experts. The county commissioners passed this amendment to the UDO that would limit the noise level to 60 decibels. But that was it. And we fought, and I was the only one at the meeting to speak out that night. And we were concerned because it seemed like it was going to be a done deal. November. So it was after that we talked, and then we called a meeting at Janice Church over in Kingsboro, and that's when we started turning things around.
So my role as the Pamlico Tar River Keeper and our goal as a water quality organization is to protect our waterways and the communities that rely on them. So my role throughout this whole process was, last year I got a couple emails from Jim letting me know what was going on. And as a riverkeeper, we do a lot of reactive work, pollution investigations, and trying to solve one-off water quality issues, but we also do a lot of this long-term advocacy when there are big industries or development proposals that we know are going to negatively impact our rivers. So that's when I got involved with the ENDCA, Edgecombe Neighbors for Data Center Accountability, because this is a new issue for me and a new issue for a lot of the other waterkeeper organizations throughout Eastern North Carolina that we work with. Definitely rapidly expanding industry, but from what we found, these data centers, especially most of them currently operating the current technology that they have today, they use a lot of water. And they require clean, treated fresh water to operate and cool their equipment. So that water would be coming right from our water treatment plants, which source their water from our rivers. And big talking point throughout this whole thing is that Edgecombe County, as well as most of North Carolina right now, is in severe drought, and climate change is predicting more frequent and severe droughts. So the big question is, do our rivers have the capacity to give all of this water to this rapidly expanding industry?
As the debate over data centers continue, Edgecombe County's Data Center Advisory Group took a closer look at what the massive project could mean for the community. One of the biggest concerns was water. According to the report, one proposed project could use as much as 500,000 gallons of water per day. While the county may currently have available capacity, the larger question is what that level of consumption could mean for future growth, future industries, and the long-term sustainability of the county's water resources. Noise was another concern. The county recently amended its Unified Development Ordinance to limit noise levels to 60 decibels at the property line, an effort to address fears about the constant hum and industrial noise that can come from large-scale data center operations. The group also examined energy and land use, specifically whether data centers could place additional strain on the electric grid or take up valuable industrial land that could otherwise be used to attract other types of businesses. But perhaps the most significant find came from the recommendations themselves. Of all the options considered, banning data centers received the highest score. The report made one thing clear: the conversation is no longer simply about whether data centers can be built there. It is about whether Edgecombe County is willing to sacrifice what it wants to protect and who should carry the cost of development when billion-dollar projects come calling.
The major issue around all of this is just lack of transparency. Why we keep on using the words of, there are concerns around this, or, we have heard that these contaminants could be in the wastewater, is because all of the currently operating data centers don't have to report those kinds of things of how much water they used or what contaminants are in the wastewater. So right now, and throughout this whole process, we've just had more questions than anything about the real impacts to our water resources.
The community is a quiet, settled community, and things have been going well so far. And I think they may have thought that it would just be okay. And that's the way it seemed when they did the public notification in October. When they presented the information, and the way I found out, a neighbor asked me if I had heard of the public notification. I had not. And she was concerned because of her health condition. She could not even make it to the meeting. And so that's why I attended. And the way that the information was presented is, like Jim said, it was like a done deal. And however, when we started to ask questions, David asked a point-blank question: what are these 500 jobs? There was no answer, not a significant answer. when they presented it, the proposal, it was like it was very well planned out what it would do for the county. The type of wording that was used, I believe they thought that the citizens would hear it and like, oh, this is a great thing for us. And a done deal. And that there would not be any questions.
Sorry to interrupt, but do you think that they thought that this was y'all's first rodeo? Did they not see in 95 and 96 that the county has?
I don't think they gave that any thought. I really don't. I don't think they gave that any thought. But as far as I'm concerned, I knew that based on the questions not being answered, and that a few of the members of the community had that attitude like, well, it's already done, and no. And so one of my main purposes in being able to come together and organize was to educate, inform the community. And we were able to pull things together, have this open forum at my church, and the turnout was phenomenal, was absolutely phenomenal. And people's eyes opened then, and that's what launched us. And we were able to start to delve in, getting more information, factual information as far as the effects of what the data center could do. Because see, when the information was presented, it was all good. And you know, we know with anything, there is a pro and there is a con. And all we got was the pros. And so we had to start looking into the cons.
Because I had seen this happen before with other companies. I drove trucks all over the country, and I seen when they build these industries, the people that own these jobs, when I be unloading, I talk to them, they're not from that particular place. And the reason I asked that, because I had a little experience in that, being in the Army. When we moved to certain places back and forth, and we did the work and we moved on, those jobs was gone when we left. So that's why I asked that question. And they was very persistent that what I asked wasn't true. These jobs are going to be here. And we had done just a little research, knowing that there will be no more than 25 to 50 main permanent jobs at this site. So that was we caught them a little bit off guard. And going back to what Janice said, when we asked them, you know, who were the people that was going to be working them jobs, were they prepared to hire people from this area? They could not answer that at all. So that's where we sort of pushed it back.
As a result of the questions that were asked in the October notification, the public notification hearing, well, they thought they were doing due diligence to get some answers. So the assistant county manager, a county commissioner, and some of the county staff took a trip to Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, I'm in the November commissioners meeting, like Jim said, myself, Jim, and Mavis. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this presentation and I'm overwhelmed. Jim said he was the only one that spoke. I was overwhelmed. I did not know what to say because I was so fluid. When he did the PowerPoint presentation of the data center site that they visited in Memphis,
What was most alarming about it?
the humongousness of it, it was huge. It was a monstrosity. I am looking at this thing, and the reason that it just caught me completely off guard is because in the public notification here, notification in October, this is what we were told. You can look back, you can go behind, there's a data center behind Truett Bank, or there's a data center on North Carolina State's campus, okay? Well, what I saw on that screen was nothing that could fit on North Carolina State's campus, nor anything that would fit behind Truett Bank. It was humongous. And I'm thinking, is this what we are getting? It scared me.
To go back to your question about why was Edgecombe County selected as a site for this data center? Some of the reason is that we are now, Edgecombe County has the highest unemployment rating for the state. We used to have a manufacturing company called QVC that went out of business, unfortunately, due to a fire. And that was one of our largest employers. Also, Edgecombe County is dealing with getting off the list for being the achievement level around schools, jobs, housing. So the county commissioners are trying to address these numbers to improve our ability to draw and bring money and good jobs to the area. So that was a key factor. But the concern that we raised to our commissioners is that we're glad you're trying to bring jobs. We're not competing with that effort. What we are competing with is that the industries that are now providing jobs throughout the country are not the industries that we dealt with 30 and 40 years ago.
I have a question for David, and then I have a question for you, Katie. So, David, I saw where there's been some resolutions where some folks, I saw in Princeville, where they were like, no, and a couple of others. So everyone's saying no to this. You running for office, have you communicated with these folks, and what is that conversation generally like?
Yes, we have talked to them. I went around to the one in Leggett, went to one in Pine Top, Macclesfield, and they're on board with us because they know that it would affect them too. As the outer loop come around, it would affect them too. And on the other point, the developer thought that we had lost our fire, and they do this after 25 to 30 years. They'll come back with the same thing. They thought that we had lost our fire to fight this type industry, but they found out that we was very serious about this. And those communities that you just mentioned, they are with us, they stand with us, and they told us to stand with us. They signed resolutions that no data centers. And that was good to bring back to the county commissioners. And they didn't look at all the homes we have in this area. We have over 400 homes in that same area that they're talking about putting this data center. 3 schools, 10, 15 churches surrounded there. They didn't look at that at all. And I point blank asked one of our commissioners about data centers, and he said with all his study and all his research, he couldn't find nothing wrong with the data center. And so that's what put me on the hot spot.
This is not an issue that is going to only impact Kingsboro. We always say that the river doesn't know town or county boundaries. What happens upstream is going to impact downstream. So all these questions about how much water they're going to use, what contaminants are in the wastewater, how is that going to impact where I live, down in Greenville, or even right here in Tarboro. So just get a lot of questions about the water impacts. And I know there was a lot of discussion in the Edgecombe County advisory group about the water treatment plant and what their capacity is for water usage, and does that capacity of what the state tells them they can treat per day, does that line up with what the capacity of the river is, especially considering our current severe drought and the projections of climate change? Like Jim was saying before, they use diesel generators for their energy, and so outside of the water quality and water quantity issues, there are a lot of concerns about air quality and the noise pollution, and a lot of different health impacts coming from that, whether that be asthma issues, upper respiratory kind of issues. And then with the noise pollution as well, there have been reports of higher levels of anxiety and heart rates, as well as just lower overall quality of life with people that live in close proximity to these data centers.
Back in the citizen responsible zoning, the political issue was that Marvin Horton filed to run for state senate in a way as part of that movement against the hog slaughterhouse. And when the hog slaughterhouse, when Rocky Mount rejected it, when it was rejected, he ended his campaign. This time we had a different scenario in that when we went to the December County Commissioner meeting, following the meeting at Janice's church, people were fired up. It was like night and day from November meeting to December meeting. We had about 11, 12 speakers, and one of those speakers was David Batts, who pointedly said to Mr. Boswell, we're going to primary you. And on the last day of filing, David stepped up and filed against Mr. Boswell, who was the one who went on the trip to Memphis, the one who said he didn't see nothing wrong with data centers, and did not come to the community one time not to answer questions but David decided to run, and on March the 3rd, David won by a 2-to-1 margin over a 16-year incumbent over this issue. And that was a pretty big, sent a big message, sent a big message. And now he's running again in November because he has a write-in opponent who has not stood up like David did to speak for the community and stop this thing. The fact that now the developer, Energy Storage Solutions, has withdrawn its proposal for Kingsboro, and as you say, going to find a friendlier community, speaks volumes as to success that what we've done. And the fact that now the county commissioners considering a 24-month moratorium on data centers, again, is a result of what we've done and would not have happened if not what we stepped in. Back about March, I believe it was, the county commissioners agreed to create a data center advisory group to study this issue and bring back a report to the county commissioners. Now this, they selected a wide-ranging group to serve on this advisory group. They had a number of us on this advisory group who were part of Edgecombe Neighbors and Against Data Centers, maybe 6 or 7, as well as had several advocates for data centers on this same advisory group, had county staff and then different specialists. We had 4 meetings and we were able to submit various information in what they call their information library. So this information was submitted. The end result was, after the 4th session, we were asked to all rate our recommendation to the board. And we were told, we were given little stickers with various points. And when they all add the points up, the top recommendation that got the most points was a ban on data centers in Edgecombe County. Wow. The number 2 was a robust update of the county's UDO. And then it went down from there. So the point being, this was the recommendation for this group. The county commissioners had not act to enact a ban. Rather, they're proposing a 24-month moratorium which could result in a ban after 24 months if the county board so desires, or it could result in a comprehensive restrictive UDO.
So there's a meeting tonight with the county commissioners. What is it that you all are looking to hear, and how have some of the recent victories, how do you feel like that's going to shape up what the message is going to be tonight? And anyone can answer that.
As a result of what we've done, one of our main points was listen to the people. I want to believe they have done that now. As a result of our work, our efforts, which they have alluded to, that as a result they have learned and perhaps had a change of heart. And so at the June commissioners meeting, that's when they made the announcement that they will be holding a public hearing on August the 3rd to propose a vote for the 24-month moratorium. That's a win for us. And because of that, we drafted a letter, because at that time we felt as though our efforts in the Data Center Advisory Group was kind of being overlooked, because the number one vote was to ban, and it seemed like they were ignoring that. So the members of Edgecombe Neighbors that were invited to be on that group, we drafted a letter and requested a meeting with the Chairman Leonard Wiggins of the Board of Commissioners. He agreed to sit down with us along with Eric Evans, who is the county manager, to discuss why they chose not to honor that request for a ban. There we did get some information. And so as far as some legality issues that they have to look into, which is okay, with us, because we want to make sure that we're on the right page with things. This is the whole point, is that what we do is done in a manner that's decent and in order and with transparency. So when they told us that, as far as the ban is concerned, there are some legality issues that they have to look into. But at the same time, that they will be recommending the 24-month moratorium, which we can live with that.
Yep, this is Owen Ellis. We're here at the County Commissioners building, where we meet once a month. We've been working for, I'd say almost a year now with the Data Center Accountability Group, and it's a large community of us in Edgecombe County that have grown up here. We born and raised here. We love our land, and we love the people we live around. And our idea here is to just let our voices be heard. We want the county commissioners to know that their constituents do value this land and this idea. And when we saw that there were proposed data centers coming, we knew that the long-term effects were not worth the short-term payout if that were even to happen. So we came together. A lot of us organized and spent countless hours volunteering and getting together in subcommittees and trying to make sure that we had an organized effort to respectfully decline the offer of any developers and data centers. I have children that are growing up right here on this land, 3 miles not even from where they were proposing the last data center. And I have relatives that were a big part of the fight against IPB and the hog slide. And our idea is that we want to grow and prosper as a community, but we don't want to do so at the expense of the community and the health and well-being of the people who do live here. And every day we enjoy where we live. So we do want to see continual growth. We're not opposed to that at all, and prosperous opportunities. We just want to make sure they're actually beneficial to those of us that live here for future generations to come. As I said, my children and I, we have a little homestead with my wife out in the county, not too far from where they were proposing the data center. And I think a big part of that is, the environmental concerns. The data is ever growing every day, and I don't think that a lot of people have well-informed opinions about data centers just as of yet. So that's why we stepped up. Mainly my friends in there stepped up, and I just did what I could and when I could. But you know, to hopefully better inform the population. So anyway, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you guys.
Also adding that during that period, that 24-month period, as they will be looking into different aspects of the effects of data centers and what can be done with this county, they're going to refer back to us. So we're not going to be totally just dismissed. They are going to recognize that we have some input from the advisory group. So it's a plus, it's a win.
On this evening, a 2-year moratorium on new data center development passed, giving the county time to take a deeper look at the proposal and any others that may come in the near future. For the residents who organized, this was bigger than one meeting. Decades after the Citizens for Responsible Zoning fought to protect Kingsboro, another determined group came together for an environmental justice call to action. A different generation, different industry, same fight to protect the home. They organized, they showed up, asked questions, and stood together. It proves that numbers are important, but unwavering faith, a strong vision, and community support can still win the prize. History gave them that blueprint. And once again, Edgecombe County residents answered the call.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Katie Zimmerman. I work as your Pamlico Tar Riverkeeper for the local water quality nonprofit Sound Rivers, dedicated to protecting and advocating for our rivers and the communities that depend on them. I'm here today in support of the 24-month moratorium on data center development. This vote, again, is not against economic development, but for thoughtful planning. Data centers are a rapidly evolving industry with significant demands on our resources. Across North Carolina, state leaders are actively considering legislation and regulatory changes to better address these impacts and ensure that communities have the information and protections they need before projects can move forward. Allowing time for those conversations to conclude will help ensure that Edgecombe County is making decisions under a stronger and more complete regulatory framework, not one that is still being written. A temporary moratorium also gives local governments the opportunity to evaluate whether their own development ordinances adequately reflect the community's priorities. Counties deserve the time to understand the long-term implications of these facilities and to adopt standards that protect public resources, infrastructure, and quality of life before any future proposals can be considered. This is especially important given the uncertainty surrounding recent changes to North Carolina's downzoning laws. As legislators continue working to address unintended consequences of that bill, a pause provides time for local governments to regain the flexibility they need to update zoning and development ordinances without risking legal uncertainty. Local elected officials know their communities best and should retain the authority to establish development standards that reflect local values and local needs. For Sound Rivers, water is at the center of this conversation. Water is essential to our communities and our rivers. Decisions today will shape how these shared resources are managed for decades to come. Taking 24 months to gather information, monitor changes in state policy, engage the public, and strengthen local protections is a responsible and measured approach. I urge you to also support the 24-month moratorium. Thanks for your time and consideration.
James Wren.
Good evening, good evening. My name is James Wren, 704 NC 97 East in Leggett. I'm the Democratic Precinct Chair in Leggett, also past president of U Local 150, the Cummins Rocky Mountain Engine Plant, the Phoenix Historical Society, and also Edgecombe Neighbors for Data Center Accountability. And I come before you to echo the two previous speakers to say we really appreciate the response of this board to what people have been bringing forth, the citizens of this county. Clearly, the number one recommendation of the advisory group that I was a part of was to ban data centers in Edgecombe County, but we want to support this 24-month moratorium as the wise thing to do at this time, to give time to address this uncertain future of data centers and how it impacts this county. I want to address the fact that there were some comments made at last month's meeting, is to say the effort around opposing data centers from a small group of people in this county. That's further from the truth. That's further from the truth. We have town councils in Canita, Princeville, Pine Tops, Leggett, Whitakers have all passed resolutions against data centers, especially hyperscale data centers. We had petitions been submitted. We've had the voters in District 6 on March 3rd voted for David Batts by over 2-1 margin on a no data center platform. That sends a message. So this is more than just a small group of people. This is across the board: Republican, Democrat, independent, white, black, and we want to appreciate the fact that this 24-month moratorium proposal reflects the board listening to the people, and want you to continue to listen to the people. Thank you.
Melanie Brandon.